Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and good day everyone. I, Dr. Sadia Atta, welcome you all on board. Today we will be discussing the class 1 malocclusion. As we have already studied the various classification of class 1 malocclusion and the various etiological factors, that are the skeletal, soft tissue and the dental factors, in which we said that majorly the dental factors are involved in a class 1 malocclusion. The anteroposterior relationships are usually normal, the skeletal harmony is there, and usually the underlying dental malrelations only. Then we talk that the patient presents for aesthetic concerns majorly, and there is a variant for the soft tissue variant, that is the bimaxillary protrusion or bimaxillary proclination, that is involving both the soft tissues and the hard tissues as well. The most commonly what we see in cases of class 1 malocclusion is the bimaxillary proclination or the crowding. Now, today we'll be discussing the management and the treatment of class 1 malocclusion. So, before we discuss the treatment, we shall be knowing that what type of malrelationships can be seen in cases of class 1 malocclusion. So, there are broadly we classify the malrelationships into spacing. That these are the various alignments that can be seen. For example, spacing can be seen in case of class 1 malocclusion, or individual tooth malalignments can be seen. For example, rotations or impactions or midline diastema. Or what we can see is the malocclusion in the vertical or transverse planes. For example, open bite, deep bite, cross bite. These are all what we have studied before. They can be seen in cases of class 1 malocclusion, but usually the severity is less as compared to the other malocclusions. They are less severe in case of class 1 malocclusions. Or we can see a bimaxillary protrusion or proclination, in which we may see the dental just the bimaxillary proclination means that both the teeth are proclined, or we can see that both the jaws are proclined. So there are two variants, the dental and the skeletal variants for bimaxillary proclination and protrusion. And we can see the crowding either in the maxillary or the mandibular arch or both arches. So these are the various types of malalignments that can be seen in cases of class 1 malocclusion. Now we'll be discussing them one by one, and we'll be discussing their management. So firstly, we'll be talking about the spacing, and we'll be discussing the management of spacing. This is how a spacing looks like. Means there are no contact areas established between the central or the lateral. There's space here. No contact areas. The teeth are not coming together. We can see the tongue from the teeth. So there are this way we can basically classify spacing as generalized and localized. For example, the spacing, it can be present throughout the arch. For example, from anteroposteriorly, as can be seen in both of these pictures, it can be localized to just one or two teeth. So spacing can be generalized or localized. Now when we talk about the spacing, first we will be discussing the generalized spacing. Generalized spacing usually is rare, and it is either because of hypodontia or small teeth or very well developed arches. By very well developed arches, I mean that there is a discrepancy between the tooth size and the jaw size. That the jaw size is large and the tooth size is small as compared to the jaw size, which results in spacing. Therefore, spacing can be generalized spacing usually is rare, but can be seen in cases of hypodontia or I said small teeth or the arch length discrepancies. So usually generalized spacing is further divided into mild and severe, and the treatment options and possibilities are variable in case of mild and severe generalized spacing. When we talk about the mild generalized spacing, the orthodontic treatment usually in mild cases, it is wiser to encourage the patient to either accept the spacing or to just gather the anterior tooth together. See, there are three treatment options basically. In the milder cases, usually the patient is told to accept the spaces if they are very mild. There's very less spaces between the teeth, or just to bring the anterior teeth together. It is because generalized spacing is frequently it is very difficult to treat it, and there's a tendency for the spaces to reopen. More than the difficulty, what is the difficulty that lies in the treatment of a generalized spacing is the tendency of relapse, the tendency of reopening until unless a permanent retention is there. Therefore, if the spacing, the generalized spacing is milder in intensity, and if the very less amount of generalized spacing that is present between the teeth, the option lies in the acceptance of the generalized spacing or the closure of the anterior tooth together and putting the spaces on the posterior teeth. That can be easily maintained because the anterior teeth can be easily bonded with a fixed retainer. So either acceptance or the anterior closure with a bonded retainer. Alternatively, if the teeth they are narrower than average, if they are not having a proper crown to height to width ratio and they are narrower, so in those cases the composites or porcelain veneers can be used to widen them, or the restorations can be used to widen them in cases of mild generalized spacing. So till now I have discussed that the spacing can be either generalized or localized. In case of generalized, it can be mild or severe. So if it is very mild space and it is almost negligible, it can be accepted. Otherwise, interior closure is preferred, that the anterior teeth are just closed and given a retainer because the tendency of relapse is there. Or if there is any discrepancy between the height to width ratio, in those cases the restoration or a veneer or a composite restoration can be provided. But if it is a generalized spacing and it is severe in nature, in cases of severe generalized spacing, particularly that is in case of hypodontia, a combined orthodontic and restorative approach is used, that is used to localize the space for the provision of prosthesis. For example, ortho is used to localize the space at one area, and at that area a prosthesis or a crown or an implant can be placed. Now, talking about a microdontia and spacing with proclination. So, what usually happens is, in case of microdontia, that is small teeth that we may see space in the arch that can be localized majorly. So, in the cases of microdontia, build-ups are usually advised. By microdontia, I mean small tooth. So, if the tooth height and width ratio is not in accordance with the other teeth, so it is built up to match the height and width ratio of the other teeth to improve and enhance the smile aesthetics, and definitely it will be covering the space as well. Or a prosthesis can be given in cases of microdontia, for example a crown or a veneer or a laminate can be applied to that tooth, or anterior spaces can be eliminated by accepting the class 2 segments. By this, what I mean is we are going for orthodontic space closure uh, by accepting the small tooth, by accepting the microdontia. So the spaces can be eliminated by the closure of the space. So spaces can be eliminated by bringing the teeth together with orthodontics. So, if there is spacing that is present with proclination, then in that case we can either use a removable or a fixed appliances. And the removable appliances in the case of spacing with proclination can be a labial bow in a removable plate that can be activated to close the spaces. Or when we are using the fixed appliances, then intra-arch or inter-arch elastics can be used to close the spaces, or a power chain can be used to close the spaces. So when we talk about the spaces, we said they can be generalized or localized. When I talk about the generalized, there are mild and severe. In case of mild generalized spacing, we are having three treatment possibilities. Either we are going for acceptance or anterior closure or restoration. In case of severe generalized spacing, we are going for orthorestorative um, mixed protocols, in which first ortho is done to localize the spaces, and then the restorative part is there, that is the prosthesis or the implants are given. When we talk about the localized spacing, that can be either because of the microdontia or because of spacing with proclination. In those cases, the buildups or prosthesis can be given, or in cases of spacing with proclination, either the removable or fixed appliances can be chosen, in which the labial bow in a removable appliance can be given to close the interior, to close the spacing, or when a fixed appliance is used, elastics or power chains can be used for the space closure. Now moving towards the midline diastema. In case of a midline diastema, um, uh, first of all, we need to know what a midline diastema is. Midline diastema is a space that is present between the central incisors, and usually it is seen between the maxillary central incisors. So before I move towards the treatment of the midline diastema, we need to rule out the causes of the midline diastema. So there are two major causes of midline diastema. Either the high frenal attachment can be causing a midline diastema. This can be seen here, a very high frenal attachment and a gap between the two maxillary incisors. Or there can be supernumerary tooth that may be causing a midline diastema. So before we begin with the treatment of midline diastema, these considerations should be in mind, that what is the basic cause of it. Before the complete closure of midline diastema, a frenectomy is advised, that is the cutting of high frenal attachment if it is there, for the proper closure of the midline diastema, or in case of a supernumerary, it must be extracted before the treatment. So, the treatment of midline diastema can be done either with the fixed appliances or by the help of a removable appliances. Among the removable appliances, finger springs, these are the palatal finger springs, they can be used to close the spaces between the central incisors, or the split labial bows. This is a split, this is from here to here and from here to here. They are activated to close the space. Or split labial bows or finger spring with a labial bow can be used in cases of removable appliances to close the midline diastema. Or the fixed appliances, here just two teeth, they are fixed to just two teeth, but usually complete comprehensive fixed orthodontic treatment is needed for the closure of a midline diastema. Now, talking about the rotations or individual rotations that are present in class 1 malocclusion. So, when we're talking about the rotation, but we need to memorize it, that rotations, they are usually treated by fixed appliances, and these are one of those movements which are most prone to relapse, and that relapse is majorly because of the circular and the transseptal gingival fibers. Therefore, in cases of rotation, here we can see a rotation. This is what a rotation is. The tooth is rotated around its axis. Or here, these are the rotations. So usually these are the movements that are most prone to relapse. So in the cases of correction of rotation, over correction is always done, means they are over corrected, and then retention is given at least for 1 year because of the high relapse rate. And I told you earlier that the high relapse rate is because of the gingival fiber, that particularly the circular and the gingival fiber, and the transseptal fibers, which are the gingival fibers. So what is done usually after the rotation correction is, there are certain surgical procedures that are done after the rotations are corrected for in order to prevent the relapse. There are two types of surgical procedures. Number one is CSF and second is pericyon. So by CSF we mean that is circumferential supracrestal fibrotomy. By circumferential supracrestal fibrotomy, what we do in CSF is an incision with a scalpel is given in this area, the circumferentially. within the pocket circumferentially an incision is given all around the tooth, and the circular fibers are cut so that they lose the memory for relapse. So in case of circumferential supracrestal fibrotomy, around the tooth, sir, in the gingival pocket, all around the tooth an incision is given in the tooth that has been derotated or corrected. What it does is it cuts all the circular fibers and the tendency of relapse is decreased. And what happens in cases of perician is a vertical incision is given interdentally that spares the interdental papilla, that is not involving the interdental papilla. 2 to 3 millimeter above the interdental papilla, interdental vertical incision is given till the alveolar bone. So what it does is it basically cuts the transseptal gingival fibers that are moving from one tooth to the other tooth, and definitely that will prevent the relapse. So in cases of rotation, there the relapse is very high, so overcorrection is always done, or anal retention is mandatory, and the procedures that can decrease the rate of rotation relapse are the CSF and perician, that is circumferential supracrestal fibrotomy and the pericians. Circumferential supracrestal fibrotomies are majorly aiming the circular fibers. They are given in the supracrestal area, that is inside the pocket, and all the circular fibers are cut. And perician are the vertical incisions that are given interdentally, which are not involving the interdental papilla. Now, the other type of malpositions that may be present in case of class 1 malocclusion are open bite, deep bite, and the cross bites, and we have already discussed them in detail. So, in case of open bite, what we are going for is either the extrusion of the incisors, or the intrusion of the molars, or the mesialization of the molars. And what else we can do is that we can retrocline the incisors to achieve a good bite, or in severe cases we'll be going for surgeries. I'll not be going into the detail of these malocclusions as we have studied them in detail earlier. What we can use is the bite blocks for the intrusion of posterior teeth, or retroclination of the incisors to achieve a correct bite in case of open bite. And then when we talk about the deep bite, we can going for the molar extrusions of the incisor intrusions, or the combinations. We can going for the proclination of the incisors, or everything that is just the reciprocal of open bite is done in deep bite, because both of these malocclusions are present in the vertical plane. So these are corrected by these means. Then we talked about the transverse discrepancies that are present in class 1 malocclusions. In the transverse discrepancies, will be dealing the transverse discrepancies that are present in the anteroposterior plane. They are causing an anterior crossbite, and the transverse discrepancies that are present in the transverse plane are usually causing the posterior crossbites and are dealt separately. So in cases of anterior crossbites, usually a cat lens or tongue blade or a removable Z-spring will be given. And in case of posterior crossbites, we'll be usually giving the lingual arches or the jack screws. So now moving to another important component of class 1 malocclusion and its treatment, that is bimaxillary protrusion on skeletal 1 pattern. So what basically bimaxillary protrusion is, that is both the upper and the lower, the incisors, they are proclined, and they are causing a class 1 malocclusion. Because the incisors, they are lying under the cingulum plateau, we are categorizing it as a class 1 malocclusion. So in cases of bimaxillary proclination, usually the management is very difficult, because both the upper and the lower incisors, they need to be retroclined to reduce the overjet. As we can see here, that the incisors, they are more proclined, and both of them need to be retroclined. Both of them needs to be taken back to their normal inclination in order to achieve a harmony, a balance, Therefore, in cases of bimaxillary proclination, both the upper and the lower incisors need to be retroclined, and this reduces the overjet and it creates a harmony. But whenever we are planning the retroclination of the lower labial segment, what it will do, it will encroach the tongue space. Whenever these incisor, lower incisor will be retroclined, taken back, they will encroach the tongue space, and therefore there is a high likelihood or relapse that can be seen in cases of bimaxillary proclination. There are very high chances of relapse in cases of bimaxillary proclination, because the incisors, when they will be retracted or retroclined, they will encroach the space of the first of the tongue. Therefore, the treatment should be approached with caution in cases of bimaxillary proclination. Um, if but in cases of bimaxillary proclination, if we see that the lips are incompetent, but they have a good muscle tone, and they are likely to achieve a lip to lip seal if the incisors are retracted, there are more chances of a stable result. So what I mean by this is that if the lips are incompetent but their tonicity is good, and you are anticipating that after retraction it's likely to achieve a lip to lip seal, in those cases the results will be stable in bimaxillary proclination. So what is usually in cases of bimaxillary proclination, first premolars are extracted. All first premolars are extracted. By the extraction of the first premolars, there is a space that is present in both the arches. Two premolars from each arch, first premolars, all first premolars. So the incisor are retracted in that space, and the incisor inclination is corrected usually. And the bimaxillary proclination, it is always addressed with the fixed appliance, and it is a very high anchorage demanding case. So anchorage considerations need to be very carefully monitored. When we talk about the retention of bimaxillary proclination, usually a fixed retention is always preferred. As I have mentioned earlier, that in cases of those bimaxillary proclination, which we can see that the lips are having a good tone and they may be causing a lip to lip seal, that are more stable cases. But in those cases of bimaxillary proclination where the lips are already competent, or they are incompetent to an extent that even after your retroclination they will not achieve a lip to lip seal, in those cases they are unlikely to be having a very stable result after the correction. Because in cases of competent lips, we and bimaxillary proclination means that there's some problem that is lying endogenously in the tongue, and which is causing the bimaxillary proclination. Therefore, the relapse chances will be very much high. And in cases of in very much lip incompetency, that will not be creating a lip to lip seal at the end of the treatment. In those cases, even if the incisors are retracted, there will be no lip to lip seal or no anterior force that will stop them from being proclined again. So in those cases, in cases of bimaxillary proclination with competent lips, and in cases of bimaxillary proclination with so much incompetent lips that the lip to lip seal will not be achieved at the end of the treatment, in those cases a fixed retention is a mandatory, is must. Whereas those cases of bimaxillary proclination which are having incompetent lips but good muscle tonicity, and we are anticipating that at the end of the treatment there will be a good lip to lip seal, those cases are more stable. Now, what if there's bimaxillary protrusion with skeletal prognathism? What does I mean by this is that both the incisors are proclined, but both the maxillary and the mandible jaw, they are proclined, they are prognathic as well, they are forward as well. So in those cases with that the teeth are proclined and the jaws are proclined as well, prognathic as well. In those cases, a surgical correction can be done in for a patient with true skeletal protrusion, and for that surgical correction was the best one is this anterior subapical osteotomy. That is a portion, premolar along with a segment of bone is removed, and the anterior uh, maxilla and the anterior mandible will be set back in order to enhance both the facial aesthetics and the dental aesthetics, and that will result in a more harmonious and balanced facial profile. So usually the teeth that are extracted in cases of bimaxillary proclination are first molars, but can be all second premolars depending upon the upon the nature or the size or any etiological factor, for example caries, etc. On the tooth. It can be a second premolar, but usually we are going for first premolars. Now, lastly, we'll be discussing the crowding that comes under class 1 malocclusion. So, usually in cases of class 1 malocclusion with severe crowding, and the patient presents to you in a pre-adolescent age, in a mixed dentition age. With severe crowding, I mean that in cases of pre-adolescents that are presenting to you with more than 5 millimeter of crowding per quadrant, in those cases we can be using a serial extraction protocol in case of class 1 malocclusion. And among the serial extraction protocols, there are different protocols that can be used. It is Tweeds, DeVille's, CD4, DC4, etc., that you have already studied in detail. So now talking about the extraction guidelines that are related to crowding in cases of class 1 malocclusion, the extraction guidelines will be dependent upon the position, presence and prognosis of the permanent teeth. There are various factors. Either they'll be depending on the position, presence, or the extraction will be based upon the amount of crowding that is there or the malocclusion that is there, or the extraction will be planned according to the encourage requirements or the patient profile. By patient profile, we mean, for example, well aligned arch but bimaxillary proclination, both the uppers and the lowers they are proclined and causing lip incompetency. In those cases, still we are going for all first premolars, so that the teeth can be taken back, and the lips should be taken back as well, and that they will cause a competent lips and a harmonious profile. So patient profile is one of the major determinants when we are planning the extractions. So there, here we'll be dividing it into the mild, moderate, and severe crowding, and then we'll be discussing the treatment opportunities. So when the crowding it is less than 4 millimeter in the arch, when the crowding is less than 4 millimeter in the arch, then the treatment of opportunities that we are not going to consider are extraction. Usually in cases of less than 4 millimeter crowding in an arch, extraction is rarely considered, and it is usually managed without arch expansion, which means that neither expansion or neither extraction is considered. A minimal amount of arch wire expansion will suffice. What else can be done is slightly reducing the interproximal spaces, that is IPR, interproximal reduction or stripping is done, and that interproximal reduction or stripping is coordinated with the upper arch. Or what can be done in cases of very mild crowding like 4 millimeter, either IPR or stripping can be done, or proclining the lower incisors or the upper incisors, that will provide space within the arch and correct the this minimum amount of crowding. Or derotation also provides the space. So in cases of mild crowding, either derotation or proclination or stripping or IPR or arch wire expansion can be done, and extractions are rarely considered. As we can see, there is minimal crowding in this arch, so this crowding is dealt in this way. So when we talk about the moderate crowding, that is 5 to 9 millimeter of the crowding, as can be seen here, it can be either proceeded with an extraction or a non-extraction basis. So both the extraction and the non-extraction treatment are possible. and can be chosen. So non-extraction treatment, if we have chosen it, in those cases usually the expansion modality is then used, particularly the transverse expansion around the molars. In cases of non-extraction treatment of moderate crowding, that is 5 to 9 millimeters, expansion has to be done, particularly around the molars. The transverse expansion has to be done for the creation of space, and posterior, or we can move the posterior teeth more distally, that is these teeth are taken more distally or distalize the posterior segment to create space for the anterior, to relieve the anterior crowding. So in cases of moderate crowding, can be done with extraction or non-extraction. If we are proceeding with non-extraction, then we have to go for the arch expansion or distalization to relieve the crowding. When we talk about the severe crowding, that is arch length discrepancy more than 10 millimeters, in these cases, as you can see, a complete tooth is out of arch, still there is crowding. So this is a severe form of crowding. In those cases, extraction is almost always mandatory, required, and because the extraction roughly equals the amount of the structure that is removed, uh, and the crowding. For example, if it is like 9 millimeters and this crowding accounts for 3 millimeters, so it's around 12 millimeter crowding in the arch. So if you are going for extraction of uh, two premolars, for example 14 millimeters, so still the space that will be left is just 2 millimeters that can be managed orthodontically, which means that the amount of crowding that is present, it is roughly equals the amount of tooth mass that has to be removed. So in cases of severe crowding, usually extraction is always considered favorable. It will not be affecting the lip support much. But when we talk about the mild crowding, we said that extraction is rarely advised. Why? Because if we extract the teeth, then 4 millimeter of crowding will be relieved in that space. Other space has to be utilized by retraction of the incisors or bringing the molars forward. So if you will be retracting the incisors, it will be affecting the profile of the patient. The lips will be retracted, and the profile of the patient will be affected. So when we talk about the moderate crowding, still half of the space is left. So it is the extraction or the non-extraction decision depends upon the profile of the patient. So if the patient is having competent lips and a retrusive profile and moderate crowding, in those cases we usually prefer not to extract. But in cases of patient is having a moderate crowding but incompetent lips, and so in those cases definitely extraction will be advised, because after extraction the rest of the space will be closed by incisor retraction. That will help the competent to bring the lips into competency, and that will definitely improve the patient profile. But in cases of severe extraction, usually the amount of tooth mass that is being removed roughly equals the crowding, so there is no marked change that is seen in the profile of the patient in case of severe crowding. And what are the teeth that are usually preferred for extraction in cases of class 1 malocclusion? They are usually the first premolars. All the first premolars usually are chosen for the extraction, or all the second premolars can be extracted depending upon the space and the anchorage requirement. In cases of class 1 malocclusion. So till now about crowding, what we have studied is that if it is mild crowding, extraction is usually not advised. In moderate, extraction or non-extraction decision is variable, and in cases of severe, we have to go for extraction, usually extraction of all first premolars or the second premolars depending upon the anchorage requirement is planned. And this there are two major factors. First is the amount of crowding, and second is the soft tissue profile and the competency of the lips. So in cases of moderate crowding, when there is lip incompetency and proclined incisors with moderate crowding, in those cases the extraction is a favorable procedure. Now this brings an end to today's discussion. Now I'll be concluding the class 1 malocclusion, in which we have already classified it on the basis of angles, in which we classified on the basis of molars, and according to British school, in British Institute, we classified it on the basis of incisors, as class 1 malocclusions. So on the basis of molars, if the mesiobuccal cusp is lying in the buccal groove, we say it as a class 1, and on the basis of incisors, if the cingulum plateau, lower incisal edge is lying at the cingulum plateau, we call it as class 1. Majorly, when we talked about the etiological factors, the dental factors are the factors that are majorly involved in class 1 malocclusion. The variant in which there is a soft tissue etiology is a bimaxillary proclination. Then we talked about the management of class 1 malocclusion. We discussed the management of spacing, and then the vertical discrepancies, that is open bite and deep bite, and the transverse discrepancy, that is cross bite and midline. We discussed about the midline diastema, and then we talked about the crowding. All of the management of class 1 malocclusions are dealt with, and then we talked about the extraction guidelines in mild, moderate, and severe cases. So this is all for today. We'll be discussing the scenario in the coming lecture, inshallah. So the take home message is, if you can't do great things, do small things in a great way. Stay home, stay safe, stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.